I think we're going live and we should be. You're live, it says. All right. Better than being dead.
That's true. Much.
Alrighty.
That's not true.
Okay, well, let's discuss the metaphysics later. Glad to meet you all today in our class online and here, actually physically here. Glad to see everybody here. And I just want to let you know, my name is Norm Ellis. This is Grace Baptist Church, the Adult One Bible Study. And we're in Joshua. And today we're going to be at Joshua chapter 6. And it's called Winning Strategy. We're going to look at these 4 areas. Instructions obeyed, verses 12 through 14.
Come in.
Victory assured. He's not here yet. 15 through 19. Walls destroyed, 20 through 21. And promises kept, 22 through 25. And if you follow along in our study book, we're in session number 4. Page 37 is where it starts. And the main idea today is that God gave his people victory when they trusted and obeyed him. Trusted and obeyed. Trust and obey. Yes, there's a song right there. There's one additional verse I threw in there just for free, no charge. John 16:33. We'll hopefully get to that one too. So, glad to have you all here, like I said. Let's go ahead and have a word of prayer. We'll begin. Heavenly Father, I thank you for this opportunity we have to read your word, Lord, and to understand these things from many years ago, Lord, and how we can learn a lot from these stories of what happened before, how you were faithful and the people trusted and obeyed. And I just pray that you'd help us as we go through these verses today to see those things. Be with those people that aren't here yet. If they're on their way, keep them safe for as they're coming. And I just pray for those that are sick, that they would get better. And there's many that I know of that have been suffering lately, Lord. And I just pray for CC's eyes, especially, and for the relative of her caregiver, too, Lord. Pray for that person as well that is ill right now. And I guess that's it. Thank you, Lord, for all you've done. In your son's name, amen.
Amen.
All right. So I do have 3 more verses now. Your eyes are such that you can't read, correct?
No. My corneas are ulcerated, so I can't read.
That's what I'm saying. You can't read. So no problem.
If nobody else happens to come today.
I might give you a second verse if you don't mind.
Okay, but if Steve
And if
comes.
Steve comes here, don't give him that one.
Oh,
We'll
okay.
give him this one.
Okay.
I'll do the first and third, and you do the second and fourth. How about that?
Okay, that sounds.
There's a lot of verses, but you can use your Bible instead of this translation is the New American Standard 95 update that I use, and but you can use your translation as well. So let me see. This is really an interesting lesson today, study today. Oh, there's that. You know, sometimes you drop these staples and they like disappear.
Oh. And then if you sit on it, it's.
So when you see them again, you want to grab them then.
Here. I'll put it in the garbage.
Oh, thank you. If you can feel it, it's there.
There it is.
Anyway, so it's called Winning Strategy. So Joshua, he had this great winning strategy, right? You know what that strategy was? I'll tell you. Follow what God says.
Yes.
It was pretty simple. He didn't have to develop a battle plan. He just, okay, Lord, I'll do it that way. And do it that way. You know, so many times we want to, well, I know you want me to do that, Lord, but you know, I got a better way to do it. It doesn't turn out better. No, it doesn't turn out better. And so we're going to see a positive example with Joshua today. Okay. Let me see here. So you should have a copy of my handout. Looks like this for those of you online. Those of you online will be missing only one page. I found this diagram at the end of the day after I set out the handouts. It's an ancient Jericho. It's a diagram. It's the last page. It's kind of interesting, and we'll hopefully get a little chance to look at that. Anyway, where am I? Oh, intro paragraph. There we go. So the intro paragraph is on our handouts, page 1, and in like the second item, second area there. Or you can look in your lesson book, study book on page 37. And I'll go ahead and read it for us. It says, parents of toddlers, good morning, Steve. Parents of toddlers want to teach their children to trust them. And I'll give you this one here. For what? Right there. I had to do the translation. this one verse for me? It's a small
I don't do verses on Sundays.
Oh, yeah.
I
Well,
do poems. and
Sharon's
stuff.
got two, so, you know.
Well, good for Sharon.
Nag, nag, nag.
All right.
I do poems and sonnets.
So, back to our intro paragraph. Parents of toddlers want to teach their children to trust them. That makes sense, right? Listen to your parents, do what your parents say, right? Building this trust involves providing for their needs and protecting them. And some parents build trust by encouraging their child to leap into their arms when the jump appears to be very long and a dangerous one for their child. Don't do it if it's dangerous.
Yeah.
This is a caveat. I'm not saying do this stuff. I'm just saying some people do that. When the child makes the jump and the parent does catch them,
Yeah.
I
those
put
instances.
that part in there. It says both the parent and child are exuberant. I didn't die.
And they want to do it again.
Yeah, well, sometimes the child does. God often calls upon his children to make what appears to be an enormous leap, to demonstrate to them that they can always trust in him as they obey him. So it asks the question, what is involved in learning to trust someone? That's a good, thoughtful question. What is involved in learning to trust someone? What do you think is involved in learning to trust someone? What comes to mind?
They are constant, reliable.
Okay, so the person you're trusting in is a consistent person in their personality. You know from the past what they said what they were going to do and they did it, right? I don't like that. That's good. So being consistent. Can we trust God? Is he consistent? He is consistent. Yeah. What else? Anything else come to mind? I think you must realize that the person's going to do what that person says, obviously, like we already talked about. I think there has to be probably some build up to it. In other words, background to it. Oh, I saw that person do this, and they did what they said. They're doing such and such. And then you, based on what you have seen the history of, you can do that too. And also, I think you can trust, learn to trust somebody who maybe God's revealed to you that this is a person you need to trust for whatever reason that might be.
In
And,
the
go ahead.
case of the Israelites, the ones that were with Joshua had seen everything that had happened in the past, and
Yeah.
and there again it was the history and consistent protection.
They knew all the stories about what happened in Egypt and how Moses delivered them, and how he caused the Red Sea to part. They knew all that stuff. They were the new generation. They hadn't actually seen it with their own eyes. So
Well,
they trusted him, except for Joshua and Caleb, of course. Go ahead.
That's not true because the Jordan River.
What about the river? No, I'm talking about before that part. Yeah. While they're in the wilderness, they learned to
No.
trust.
Well, the
Moses.
Red Sea was, I don't know the dimensions of, but I consider the Red Sea to be much bigger than the Jordan River.
Probably was, yes. Probably the larger, wider,
Yeah, wider.
deeper. It's no doubt about that.
Yeah, but then they knew that had happened, so
hmm
this smaller, wide but
Mhm.
smaller body of water,
hmm
God could do it.
That's
Well,
right.
But God also provided the manna
Mhm.
and
Yep.
the meat. He
Mhm.
provided every time.
Clothing that didn't wear out.
Right.
Yeah. And a leader they could trust, Moses, right?
They could see the pillar of fire and
Mhm.
the pillar of smoke. No.
Yep. And they also were, during that time in the wilderness at least, they had survived against other armies, other groups that had attacked them, by the way. A couple times that happened during that time frame. Anyway, so here they are. We talked about already that they crossed the river, right? So they saw what their parents saw, so that, again, enforces, or not enforces,
Reinforces.
the fact that they can trust God, and they can trust this man Joshua, who's now taken over for the person they had been trusting, Moses, right? So all these things happened, and they went and they camped out at an area called Gilgal. Where is Gilgal? Well, they think they crossed right about here, and they traveled up to Gilgal, and they camped there. Jericho wasn't very far away from there. Jericho was right across from a main ford of the Jordan River. Now, what's a ford? A ford is usually a shallower place where you can cross during regular times. You know, it's not that deep. This was during flood stage when they came across. It was quite wide and quite deep. It was a formidable barrier, and God caused it to dry up while they passed. We talked about that last week. Anyway, so now they're across the river and they're at Gilgal. Do you think Jericho has taken notice
Yes.
of this huge amount of people?
Well,
Now, they weren't all soldiers, but the amount was roughly about a million or so, I think. Anyway, go ahead, you were going to say?
I was gonna say, they'd already heard because the Israelites had fought the battles on their way, so Jericho already knew that.
They also knew what happened to Egypt. Yeah. So they actually, not just Jericho, the whole area, we found out, had heard of what was happening. Now, was this the first time they'd heard about God, do you think?
No, I don't think so.
It wasn't, no. If you go back further, and there had been an intervening like 400 years since they had left, Israel had left and went to Egypt during that famine and stayed there. And so the people of that area had that witness until they left. And they knew that there was a God that was the God of Israel, but was also the God of the world. They knew all these things. And yet they still practiced all the sinful activities that they were practicing. And a lot of terrible, like bestiality, homosexuality, child sacrifice, all kinds of horrible things. And it was not a good place to be in that area of the world. And this is what Israel's now moving back in to take over their ancestral lands again. And so the people that are there, that's what they're doing, those kind of things. Go ahead, you're going
The
to say.
story of Rahab, we're coming to it, but she knew, and that's why she
Yes.
welcomed them in, and so,
Remember what she said?
yeah.
Our hearts melted when we heard about how God was doing these things. And so it affected her profoundly, didn't
And
it?
all the people in the city had heard, so,
Mhm.
yeah.
She did something different though.
Yeah.
She threw her lot in with Israel and away from that stuff.
And
Which-
consequently, she became an ancestress. I know, I'm coming to it.
She became part of the ancestral line of Christ.
Yes,
through the
yes,
Messiah.
she did.
Were you going to say something else?
Well, I was gonna say is because they knew all of this stuff, not only that,
Mhm.
but Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob had left altars to
Right.
God
Right, exactly.
and pillars
Mhm.
marking where significant things had been.
Mhm.
So they knew that.
And by all indications, there was probably some people left there that could tell them too. Because when Israel had left, it was primarily the family of Abraham, right? And all that. But some of the people were still there who could talk about the fact that how God had talked to Abraham and how God had worked with Isaac and Jacob. You know, and so they had that witness as well. So yes, they weren't without warning, if you will, about what they should be doing.
Well, and I think that's probably why they were afraid, is because God had proven in the past
Mm-hmm.
to intervene on behalf of his people,
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
just as I think he does that today to some extent.
In our handouts, I forgot to mention real quick, we have a timeline on handout number 2. And where we are in the timeline is we're around 1406 BC. And so that's the last item in the first column. I meant to mark that for us, but I didn't do that. But you can see it, and that's where we are in our timeline. It's kind of interesting to see how these things lie with other things that happened during that time.
Where,
It looks like this. Oops, you can't see.
can you mark me? Can you mark me? Is that it? You said page 2.
Handout 2.
Handout.
It's not really page 2. It's like page 3. There you go. We're on that part of our handout.
Okay.
This sort of gives you an idea where we are in a scheme of things. And, well, since I'm talking about it, we'll talk about what else we have here. We have a handout number 3 we'll be talking about towards the end of our study today. Winning strategy, what that means for us. What are some things we can do in situations that we're praying about? And that's something that you'll be doing on your own, but we'll briefly touch on it later. And of course, there's another copy of the map, the conquest of Canaan. Mine's in color, but shows Gilgal here. If you find the Dead Sea, you go directly above the Dead Sea, you'll see Jericho and then Gilgal. And that's where they're encamped, is at Gilgal, prior to going to Jericho. And the last one is an item that I put in there that those online don't have this, and I apologize, but it's the ancient Jericho diagram. Jericho, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, was built on what was called a tell, in other words, a rise. And they reinforced that with materials that they brought up that thing. And the walls were formal walls. This is one of the most ancient cities. It's like, at that time, I think, 6,000 years old, they think. It went back that far. And so there was 2 parts to it. There was an inner area, and that's where the wealthy, the politicians, the kings, things like that, they lived there. Really, really great walls. They were a mixture of stone and clay, dirt type bricks, similar with what probably the Egyptians had the Israelites making before they left Egypt, and then they used a lot of dirt to fill in, like between 2 walls, to make the walls wider. And it was quite tall. And there was a big tower they used for observation of the stars, because that was part of their worship, was many gods. And then there was an outer wall, and this outer wall was not as good as the inner wall. That's where the people lived who didn't have as much money, didn't have as much power. They lived in that area. Now, essentially, it was a walled city, which meant most of the people in the area probably lived around it. They would go to the walled city when there was... Is that flickering on me?
It did once.
I think it did a couple times. Anyway, they would go there in times of distress, like if somebody was invading, they would go there for protection. The walls would protect them. It was one of the most fortified cities, not probably the best, but it's one of the most fortified cities. It was impressive to see up on this rise as you approached it, because on top of that they built the walls, and then another set of walls even higher, and then the tower, and so that was an impressive thing to see, and it was formidable. It was hard to come across, and hard to go against a city like that unless you had a siege machine, which is a whole different matter, but I'm not going to go too deep into that. What's a siege machine? A siege machine is something they built that could bam against the walls, or fling big boulders at the dirt, clay walls and knock them down. Alexander the Great used siege machines a lot, and later on they did. But they didn't have any siege machines.
No.
Israel did not have any. They just had their foot soldiers and God, of course, makes the winning combination. You were going to say?
Well, God gave them a siege machine, because I could see how walking around the city like that, marching, it would cause a seismic.
Well, they theorize that, but they don't know that. They've
No,
actually looked to see if there's any really bad faults around that area, and they haven't.
But it
really
didn't
found
matter if there was a fault or not, because God told, I could see how every day, and then 7 times in a day, and that shouting, it caused a vibration.
It could be that there's that theory, but the main thing is, did they do what God told them to do?
Right.
And when they did, God took care of the rest.
Yeah.
And anyway, you were going to say?
I was gonna say, for people here in the Pacific Northwest that are probably watching, it's like going over to Eastern Washington and those big bluffs that are left after the flood came through.
Yes.
That the Indians said that they moved on top of to survive. And even now, in the lake just above the man-made lake just above Grand Coulee,
Right.
there's, up on the top of it, there are old Indian encampments that they used when things were not as stable.
Yep. It's a similar strategy. It's funny. I went online to find a good picture of what Jericho probably looked like. Okay, and it's so funny. And so it showed people marching around. Okay, and they had Roman type helmets with the little brush thing on top of it. I mean, they didn't have that. They didn't have that. And they showed the walls as solid, like giant, huge stones. You know, and they didn't have that either. It wasn't like that at all. But one picture showed a gleaming white. You know, they wouldn't have wasted painting on that. So it's a lot of depictions out there that aren't quite right. I mean, it's not like medieval England. There's one classic castle there with the moat and all that stuff, and that's what I always think of when I think of a castle. It wasn't anything like that. Their walls were probably mostly dirt walls. They were special clay mixed with probably straw or something like that.
Sun-dried adobe.
Yes, essentially adobe, but I don't know if they had the same kind of thing for the adobe that the Southwest
Probably it's the
had.
same type of manufacturing.
Yep, exactly.
I saw double-walled cities in Germany. I mean,
they're formidable.
yeah.
They really are. And back then, like I said, they didn't have any kind of machines to knock them down. So they did the job. They kept the people who were attacking you out. Now, one of the things they could do is they could lay siege. When you lay siege, you basically cut off them from getting any food or water. Well, guess what? There was a spring feeding Jericho. So they were going to run out of water. And they've actually excavated ancient Jericho. There isn't a modern Jericho. It's not in the same place. The ancient Jericho is off like a few miles away from there, and it's mostly desolate. It's an archaeological site now, of course, but they have found in their diggings old remains of baskets with grain and stuff. So they know they weren't out of food either. So it had not been a long siege. Plus, it was just after harvest. So all that combined is they were in a pretty good situation. They thought. People in Jericho thought nobody can touch us. Go ahead.
7 days.
Yep.
There was the siege, 7 days.
No, but there's also it talks about being cut off, and that is also part of a siege when you do it.
Yeah.
Prior to that. Yeah.
Is that the Wailing Wall?
No. This is Jericho.
I know Jericho.
Totally different city.
That's in Jerusalem.
Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Is the Wailing Wall right in Jerusalem?
The Wailing Wall is parts of the old Herod's temple that they built back up after the Romans had tore it all down, and they built up part of the wall from the original things, and that's a remnant to them of where the temple was on one side. That's all the Wailing Wall is.
Oh, this says preserved wall. Is it today?
Oh, that's just letting you know what they have found, remnants of things. Of old Jericho.
Okay.
They know exactly where old Jericho was. And so they're digging there. Anyway, I've gotten off the track a little bit. No, not your fault. So I talked about the map also. Joshua is an experienced military leader, we know that. Today's study, though, reveals his willingness to surrender his ideas to the plans and strategy of God. Because we're going to see a rather unorthodox way to attack a city. And there's been lots of discussion about how it could have happened and what, but basically God did it. I'm going to read the first 11 verses because our main thing starts at verse 12. It says, now Jericho was tightly shut, because the sons of Israel, no one went in and no one went out and no one came in. And so that's what I was talking about before. They had a lot of people. Israel had a lot of people, and they could prevent people from resupplying and things. And that's what they shut them down basically. So they were only this walled city, and that's where we found it. The Lord said to Joshua, see, I have given Jericho into your hand, with its king and valiant warriors. You shall march around the city, all the men of war circling the city once. You shall do this for 6 days. Also, 7 priests shall carry 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark. Then on the 7th day, you will march around the city 7 times, and the priests will blow those trumpets, the ram's horns. And it shall be that when they make a long blast in the ram's horn, and when you hear the sound of the trumpet, all the people shall shout with a great shout, and the wall of the city will go down flat, and the people will go up, every man straight ahead. So Joshua the son of Nun called the priests and said to them, take up the ark of the covenant, and let 7 priests carry 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of the Lord. And then he said to his people, Go forward and march around the city, and let the armed men go up before the ark of the Lord. And it was so, that when Joshua had spoken to the people, the 7 priests carrying the 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the Lord went forward and blew the trumpets, and the ark of the covenant of the Lord followed them. The armed men went before the priests who blew the trumpets, and the rear guard came after the ark, while they continued to blow the trumpets. But Joshua commanded the people, saying, You shall not shout, nor let your voice be heard, nor let a word proceed out of your mouth, until the day I tell you, shout! Then you shall shout. So he had the ark of the Lord taken around the city, circling once, and they came into the camp and spent the night in the camp. Where's the camp again? Gilgal. Gilgal. So it's not far from Jericho. Now, what were these trumpets they were blowing? It's called a shofar.
It's a
I have one.
Are you sure? That's a baby one.
It is, but it's one nevertheless. Made in Israel, Yahelan Shofar. And this is one that Matthew has. And I asked, can I borrow it?
Yeah.
It plays a wonderful tune. You want to hear it?
I think the priests were more
I'm
proficient.
not skilled at doing this.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll get that for you. I would like you to take a look at it, because this is what they blew.
Oh.
The mini version.
The smaller version, I'm sure. There's longer versions. Some were really, really like this long. I said, nah, that's probably too long for a ram's horn. But they're probably about maybe twice that size at the largest.
When you're talking about the mountain goats in Israel,
They-
they get about 3 feet long.
Yeah, I don't know if these are mountain goat horns or just they're domesticated goats. But anyway, most of the ones I've seen depicted were a little larger than this, about twice the size. And,
Yeah.
But the ones I saw in pictures were like this size.
Yeah.
And I think that's a Texas Longhorn. But that's basically what they were blowing. And apparently, if you know how to blow this thing, it can make a big noise. Oh, I forgot to show the people on. This is a Yaelan shofar made in Israel for the tourists. I'm sure. Anyway, that's what they were blowing. Now you see depicted sometimes these nice shiny brass trumpets. You know, no, there were these things. They were very crude looking, but they made a noise if you knew how to do it right. Okay, so that's what was going on. So let's look at the first one we're going to read today. Instructions obeyed is called. And it's the first 3 verses. I want you to notice the words and phrases that stick out to you in these verses. Who has number 1?
You.
I do not have number 1. Steve's got number 1. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, 3 types of horns.
Yeah.
Now Joshua rose early in the morning, and the priests took up the ark of the Lord. The 7 priests carrying the 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of the Lord went on continually and blew the trumpets. And the armed men went before them, and the rear guard came after the ark of the Lord, while they continued to blow the trumpets. Thus, the second day they marched around the city once and returned to the camp. They did so for 6 days.
Okay. So they're following what? God's procedures, right? Now, is this the way you normally attack? No. This was an unorthodox attack plan. And it goes on to say in the Bible commentary here, God's plan to capture Jericho was simple, yet unorthodox. The army would march around the city once a day for 6 days. On the 7th day, they would circle Jericho 7 times and blow their trumpets made of ram's horns, cry out loudly, and watch God bring down the city's massive walls. So how large was Jericho? We don't know exactly because it's the ruins, but we know by the size of the tell that it was on, the rise it was on, that it could have been that big. They theorized that the inner city held about anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 people. So that's not a lot. Now the outer city had more people also, but still it's not a lot as far as cities go. And we think of cities like, big cities like New York or Seattle or places like that. They're huge, right? Huge. So this idea was foreign concept to them. They had the cities were fortress cities to protect you, and you'd come in. Otherwise, you'd live out in the outskirts somewhere, and that was the whole idea of that. It was one of the oldest cities. We talked about that already. In these verses, it's interesting that so Joshua slept in on that day and decided, well, it's almost noon. I should start, right? told him what to do, and what did he do? Did he do it right away? He certainly did, right? Because it says, now
He told the
Joshua
people.
rose early in the morning. Does that sound familiar to anybody?
Time to go pick strawberries when I was a kid.
Yeah,
Well, if you have work to do, important work to do, you usually start early to get going on it, right? That's sort of a general idea.
Beat the heat of the day.
Yeah.
I got
They
up
live in a
2
desert.
hours before I needed to be at work because there's things that you get ready.
Uh-huh. Right. But also, biblically speaking, it should sound familiar as well. In Genesis 22:3, it says, God told him to take his son Isaac and do what with him?
Oh,
Sacrifice him. Now, if I was Abraham, I'd say, okay, I'm going to put this off as long as possible, give God as much time as possible to change his mind. No. What did Abraham do? He rose early in the morning, saddled up the donkey, and took 2 of the young men with him and Isaac his son. And he split the wood for the burnt offering and rose and went to the place where God had told him. Abraham is known as a man of faith. He believed that God would take care of him. And he believed that when God said that this son Isaac is going to be the forerunner of a great nation, that he didn't know how, but he knew that God would take care of the whole situation. Maybe God was going to rise up Isaac after that. You know, he didn't know how, but he trusted him, right? And he rose up early to see what God would do. Think about that. That's interesting.
think about Isaac.
Yeah.
He must have been also
Well,
a man of faith.
Yeah, but he pretty much did what his dad told him to do. Yeah, he was probably a young man.
Yeah, young man, but yeah.
But if he grew up seeing his father's faith,
Mhm.
he's
Yeah.
going to have faith
Right.
too.
But he wasn't told until afterwards. I think the whole thing. It was kept from him. It said basically until later on when God supplied the ram now for the sacrifice. I'm not going to have to kill you. Thanks, Dad. Also, it says that Jacob, another instance here, and this is Genesis 28, 18 through 19. So Jacob rose early in the morning, took up the stone that he had put under his head and set it up as a pillar and poured oil on its top. He called the name of the place Bethel. However, previously the name of the city had been Luz, L-U-Z. So Jacob had that dream. In that dream he saw angels ascending and descending to heaven on a stairway, right? And then God talked to him in the dream, gave him the same promise he gave Abraham. And so he rose up early in the morning and made this altar to God. In Exodus 8:20, it says, now the Lord said to Moses, rise early in the morning and present yourself before Pharaoh as he comes out to the water, and say to him, thus says the Lord, let my people go, that they may serve me. So the Lord actually told Moses to do it. I think Moses would have probably been early to do it too. But this is on purpose. They would go, the Pharaoh would do some special blessing for the Nile River, apparently. And it says, when he comes out to the water, and so there's a certain, what's the word I'm looking for? Not procedure, event, regular event that he would do, and people would observe the Pharaoh doing this and feel blessed because of it, because Pharaoh's gone.
Yeah.
And so, you're going to interrupt that special thing, and you're going to tell him this message. That's exciting. And you're going to do it early in the morning. Anyway, going on. So, what else? Let me see here. They took the Ark of the Lord. Now, what's the Ark of the Lord?
It's God's resting place.
It's where he rests his feet, essentially, right? That was a figuratively type thing. But it represented God. And so it was a representation that God is with us, is what it was. And it contained the tablets of stone of the 10 Commandments, right? And it also contained a couple other things. A jar of manna and Aaron's rod that budded. Remember that? It was a special thing for that too. And it contained those things in it, but it was mainly that idea of this is the presence of God. So they took that to show the people that God is with us in this endeavor as well. You're not alone in this. God is with you. And this is for this event. They weren't supposed to do this all the time. This is for this event. They were supposed to do it. And maybe other events that God specified. Later on, they tried to do that when they went against the Philistines. And the Philistines beat them up and took the ark. The ark for a while was in the hands of the Philistines. Until God cursed the Philistines, and they said, "Oh, we don't want this around us anymore." And he put it on a cart with some milk cows and said, "Go!" And the milk cows took it back towards Israel. It's an interesting story.
I don't remember that one.
Yes, yes.
Have to
They,
reread.
they thought they had God in a box at that point, and they didn't. And God did not say to do that. That's another thing too. What else did they do here in these verses? They said, okay, so we have these priests, and there's 7 of them. Interesting. You'd think there'd be like 6, 3 on one side, 3 on the other to carry the ark. No, there's 7. Interesting. How about it? And they had 7 trumpets. And they I don't know what else. They were arranged in an interesting manner. They had before them men of war. They had the ark being carried. Then behind them, the rear guard, they have men of war. And they're marching around in this process all the way around. They would be blowing the trumpet at a certain specified time. The number 7 has special significance. Do you know what that is? Anybody got an idea?
It means it's a complete number.
Ah, yes. It signifies completeness, and I was going to try to find where that was here. There it is. The seven priests accompanied the ark in the march around the walls. Perhaps the most symbolic number in Scripture. 7 becomes a symbol for perfection and for completeness. The 7-day week reflected the Lord's first creative activity, a work that was both complete and perfect until sin entered the world. Additionally, a major Hebrew item for making an oath is closely associated with the word rendered 7. I didn't realize this. An original meaning of to swear an oath in Hebrew may have been to declare 7 times. In this context, though, the focus is not an oath, though, and what we're talking about here with the going around the city of Jericho. So rather, the 7 priests were blowing the 7 trumpets on the 7th day, emphasized, that God's judgment on Jericho would then be complete. Be complete. Interesting. So,
And it was.
and they were looking when this plan was laid out. They were probably thought, well, can't we just skip to the 7 right now and get them down now? What?
Psychological warfare.
Yeah, and it could be a part of it as well, because when the walls did come down, and this is something that was interesting. I read also is not all the walls came down. Most of the walls came down in certain places, and what happened was the upper wall fell down and hit the next wall and came down in a cascade of rubble, which made a perfect
The
ramp.
walls fell outward.
Yeah,
not
the
inward.
ones that fell outward, yes. Not all the walls fell. For instance, Rahab lived in a house in the wall, and that was not uncommon in those kind of walled cities to have that. And so, and they've excavated that area, and they found that to be true. Certain parts of the wall are intact, certain parts are not, and they came down like that. And so they just walked right into the city. So psychological warfare, you were talking about that. They were the people of Jericho were probably already defeated before that happened.
Well, when you see the size of that army walking around your city once a day, and then all of a sudden on the 7th
Yeah,
day,
you hear
just
this,
keep
yeah,
going
yeah,
around.
and then the walls come down and they march right in. It's like, what can we do? God is with them, and I think that was what the main thing was. So the Hebrew word for trumpet can be transliterated as shofar. The Israelites used this instrument as a trumpet of war as they campaigned against their enemies. It also was blown to call the people to assembly. You see that in Exodus 19:16. They blow the shofar on the Day of Atonement in the year of Jubilee, and it signaled a release of slaves and the cancellation of debts, which is kind of a neat idea. Why don't we do that today? That'd be great. The debt part, right? The latter part of Joshua 6:13 further details the order of the Israelites' procession around Jericho. The armed men moved out first, followed by the priests in the ark, and the rear guard protected the ark from behind. Joshua and his army carefully obeyed the Lord's instructions. Strange as those instructions might have seemed, the Israelites' faithfulness to obey this unusual strategy reminds us that we need to obey God's directions, even when they don't seem to make sense. But Lord, I don't understand why.
Because I said so, that's why.
I called you to trust and obey. That's right. So, have you ever been given an instruction or command that didn't make sense, at least in the moment?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's because the leader is not very smart, or we don't have the big picture, we can't see how this part fits into that, or whatever it might be. But there's been occasions I've wondered, why is this person telling me to do this way when I know this is a better way to do it? It's kind of those things. human nature is to do what? Rebel against that.
Yeah.
I'm smarter than
Now
that.
you got three guys that want to put a cabinet together, and none of them are reading the instructions. And come to find out, you have to put the walls of the cabinet outside the supports, not inside the supports.
Nobody cares
Because-
to read that part.
because it wouldn't allow the front doors to
Uh-huh,
shut
yeah.
all the way.
Yeah.
I just laughed and walked off.
Yeah, those things are funny when you come across those. Anyway, but so people will naturally say what? They will say, I don't think so. But these people said, we'll follow you. That's what God wanted. He wanted those people to be trained to understand that God knows best for you. And in our lives, the same way. I don't know why, I didn't get my choice of going to McCord Air Force Base when I first joined the Air Force, or my second choice of Hawaii. I don't know why I didn't do that. I had to go to Utah. Utah? What's in Utah? It was like the backside of the desert as far as I was concerned, because it really was, it's hot place. It stunk. The Great Salt Lake at that point, it was the brine and stuff. It wasn't pleasant. All these things, it didn't really impress me, but God wanted me there. And I learned a lot of things there. I especially learned how to witness to the Mormons there, which is interesting. Anyway, so we don't know why God does these things for us. We need to be obedient, though, in the process. If we know for a fact God's told us to do it, right? Because sometimes we think we know best, and we don't. Anyway, so his plan was unorthodox. God, they probably thought when they saw that God wants us to do what? Why? Okay. But we've been given those same things. What happened? How do God's unusual instructions test our faith? Well, because we just talked about that, right? We sometimes we think we know better, and we don't. God does. He has all knowledge. God was preparing his people to enter the promised land with this test. And it was a test to see if they're going to obey him on those things. The seventh day would offer a different kind of test. Look at number 2, victory assured. Who has number 2?
I do.
Go ahead and read it for us, please.
Okay, on the seventh day, it's Joshua 6, 15 through 19. On the seventh day, they got up at daybreak and marched around the city 7 times in the same manner, except that on that day they circled the city 7 times. The 7th time around, the priest sounded the trumpet blast. Joshua commanded the army, shout, for the Lord has given you the city. The city and all that is in it are to be devoted to the Lord. Only Rahab the prostitute and all who are with her in her house shall be spared, because she hid the spies we sent. But keep away from the devoted things, so that you will not bring about your own destruction by taking any of them. Otherwise, you will make the camp of Israel liable to destruction and bring trouble on it. All the silver and gold and the articles of bronze and iron are sacred to the Lord and must go into his treasury.
So we see some interesting things here. Again, it's not orthodox, is it? It's unorthodox what's going on here, and which means unusual. It says they rose early on that last day, right? They did the same thing. They circled the same time, right? And this time it was a little bit different. At the 7th time, when the priest blew the trumpets, Joshua then said to the people, shout. Now, before this, they were supposed to say nothing, except the ram's horns would be blown, right, by the people around at the ark. Nothing was said. Nothing else was done. They just marched around one time. This time they go around 7 times. So the people watching from think, what is going on? What is going on
For 500,000 or 1 million people to march clear around that city, it must have taken all day long.
Except not all the people were marching. It was the soldiers and the priests and the soldiers in the back.
Yeah.
So it was a specified men of war, it says, who were doing these things. The rest of them were probably observing, because a lot of times that's what happened. I don't know if you knew this or not, but like the Civil War, when there was big battles, it wouldn't just be the soldiers. You'd have the towns all around would empty out and come to watch, because this was a big spectacle. They watched the battle.
Yeah.
And they'd also bring food, and they'd also help the injured afterwards. And so there could have been some people watching from the sides also. We don't know. It doesn't say, but we do know who was involved in it. Was these special men of war and the servants of God that were holding the ark. We know that much. And so this happened the 7th time. And it was different was they shouted. Now why would they have shouted? Why do you think maybe a shout was required at this point?
They were announcing that this victory was from God.
This was it. This was the end of the campaign. We're done. We're shouting because of that, probably, right? But also because God told them to. And we don't know why. But anyway, this was a very strong, fortified city. And the people were marching around it. And like I said, some have theorized, well, maybe it set up a seismic tremor. You know, there's something called harmonics and stuff like that. And maybe God did use that. I don't know. It doesn't say there was an earthquake at all. It says the walls just tumbled down. So we don't know. There could have been maybe some sort of underwater spring, maybe that caused the weakening of those walls at that particular time. But God knew it. God knew it. And so we have no idea. But we know that God caused that to happen for whatever reason. At that time, that place. And he accomplished what no other army could do. Cause the walls to come down. And they came down in such a manner, like I said, all they do is walk up into the city. And the people of Jericho had already psychologically given up, I think, at that point. Right. When they saw the walls falling before them, their very eyes, and they realized what was going on, at that point they offered probably little resistance because they didn't expect any of that to happen. The Lord had given you the city, it says. And now what about this other things here? It talks about the word, this is a Hebrew word called cherub. And it's called, one rendering is devoted items. Things under the ban, it also says, in that way. So, what were they supposed to do with Jericho, and why do you think it was that way? Normally in the spoils of war, what? Everybody gets what they can carry off, right?
First fruits.
Oh, that's an idea. Yeah, it could be that, right? Yeah. Now, it doesn't actually say that here, except for the fact that it says they are going to be the Lord's here in this one. And I think you're right, because that's what I was thinking too, is these are the first fruits of going into the promised land, retaking the land. And they are to do what? Give God the glory. Give God the glory. Normally you would take what you wanted to take, you know, but he says, nope, this is going to be the first thing, and it's going to be a demonstration of my power, and it's going to be dedicated to God. Now, there's certain things he said, though. They were supposed to kill all the people, kill all the animals, and then all the things that were, there's a list of things here.
See, that is so hard. I know it was from God, and I know that those people, if they were allowed to live, they'd falsely influence the Israelites. But to kill all the babies, you know.
Well, you have to understand, what were these people involved with?
I know.
Horrible things.
I know.
Horrible things that we can't imagine. But all the silver, gold, bronze, and iron things were to be holy to the Lord.
And
they should go to the treasury of the Lord.
What did God tell them to do? You need to purge the land.
Well, and the people knew this too, that they were in the land. They knew that this was what they should be doing, and they thumbed their noses at God and did these horrible, detestable things. Yeah. So God is not going to let that happen. Remember Sodom and Gomorrah?
I know. Yeah.
Yep.
Took them all.
Yep, except Lot and his family.
Well,
interesting.
Took his wife.
So it was a what they call divine wrath.
Yeah.
And this is an example of divine wrath being poured out, just like the flood was. There's another picture of divine wrath. Now, what did God do in that case? Noah and his family were taken out. So what do we see shown in these cases? There's a word called mercy, right? Yeah. They didn't deserve it. Did Rahab really deserve it? Not really.
Mercy?
No. But he extended mercy to her in such a way she could not ever comprehend that she would be part of the lineage of King David and Messiah. A foreigner, somebody who had previously worshipped other gods, decided, no, I'm going to turn to the only God in the universe and worship him. him alone. Anyway, so it says that, where was it? All these things would happen, all these things were under this ban, okay? Only Rahab the harlot and all who are with her in the house shall live. Now the insinuation is her and her family, essentially, when they say that. They don't mean anybody who crammed themselves into the doorway of the house. But it could mean somebody visiting or a servant in the houses too. So that could be a part of it also. We don't know exactly, but the inference is your family, whoever your family might encompass, right? And why? Because she hid the messengers from whom we sent. But not only that, because she showed faith in God Almighty. That's why. Anyway, so don't take anything under the ban. What's going to happen if you take something under the ban?
Destruction.
Israel will be accursed and will bring trouble upon it says. Now, of course, that wouldn't happen, right?
Human frailty.
We do know something like that happened. Now, that's Paul Harvey's rest of the story. That's going to be next week. So we'll talk about that next week. But that's called the sin of Achan. He's one of the people who was the person who violated the ban. Let's look at the next one.
He was Achan after that. He was
Yes,
Achan.
that's true. Okay, was there something I'm reading here? One exception, of course, was the spare Rahab, and it was the faith that she had demonstrated in both words and actions. Hebrews 11:31. That's the verse I wanted to read. Where did I do that verse? 11:31. Hold on here. I'll find it in just a moment. By faith, this is Hebrew 11:31. By faith, Rahab the harlot did not perish, along with those who were disobedient, after she had welcomed the spies in peace. So we're going to see more about Rahab here in the next one. Let's look at the next one. Walls destroyed. Number 3. I can do that one all right. Walls destroyed. The next 2 verses consider how Israelites would have felt as they carried out God's commands. Okay, I'm going to march around here and I'm going to see the walls fall. So the people shouted, and the priest blew the trumpets. And when the people heard the sound of the trumpet, the people shouted with a great shout, and the wall fell down flat. So the people went up into the city, every man straight ahead, and they took the city. They utterly destroyed everything in the city, both man and woman, young and old, ox and sheep and donkey, with the edge of the sword. All those things were corrupted and had to be destroyed.
Yeah.
They were involved in, like I said, in terrible things like bestiality. You don't even want to know what that is. Terrible things. Putting their youngsters in the hands of the outstretched arms of Moloch, who have been superheated, and their babies would burn in the arms of Moloch. Other things like that too as well. I think. You okay?
Yeah, my head's hurting from the lights.
Oh, I'm sorry. I gotta have light. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
I know you
I
need lights, so
apologize.
I'm just closing my eyes.
Okay, no problem. Anyway, so they shouted, they blew the trumpets just like God said, and they saw a victory handed to them on a silver platter. All they had to do is go in and take it. That's an amazing thing, isn't it? So sometimes in our life, when we see these things, we wonder, well, I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. I don't know what to do. God says to do this, but that doesn't even make sense. And when we do it, we realize all along that was a good plan, and I just didn't see it. That's happened to me many times in different ways, and I'm sure it has for you as well. We need to have that faith, just like Rahab had the faith that God would preserve her when she put her trust in Him instead of the pagan gods around her. There's like 2 points here, main points in these verses. One, that people obeyed God completely, even when it didn't make sense. They did. And of course, now after that is where the sin of Achan came in, by the way. But the part where the walls fell down and they went in and took the city, that part they did right. And the second point is God did the work as the Israelites watched Him fight their battles. So these 2 points, we see a connection between full obedience and God's provision and protection. So, this is a rhetorical question. What potential victory is God asking you to trust Him to provide? So that's something to think about. I'm not asking for an answer there, but is there something in your life maybe right now that you're considering that maybe if you follow what God said would be that kind of a victory in your life, you know? Should you trust Him? Maybe we should consider that, right? Let's look at the last one. Number 4, promises kept. And we're almost out of time. We're going to have to fast on this one. For our last 4 verses, I want you to listen to and discover a promise fulfilled. Number 4, go ahead.
Joshua 6:22-25. Joshua said to the 2 men who spied out the land, "Go into the prostitute's house and bring her out, and all who belong to her, in accordance with your oath to her." So the young men who had done the spying went in and brought out Rahab, her father and her mother, her brothers and sisters, and all who belonged to her. They brought out her entire family and put them in the place outside the camp of Israel. Then they burned the whole city and everything in it, but they put the silver and gold and articles of bronze and iron into the treasury of the Lord's house. But Joshua spared Rahab the prostitute with her family and all who belonged to her, because she hid the men Joshua had sent as spies to Jericho, and she lives among the Israelites to this day.
So the person who had wrote this was probably Joshua, or Joshua had it dictated to a scribe. And so and later in his life, he's recounting this, and he's saying, to this day, she is amongst us.
Yeah.
She's part of our family. Now, it says initially she was put outside the camp. Why do you think she was put outside the camp?
Because she was unclean. She was, at that point, she was still a prostitute. She wasn't an Israelite or Jewish. So.
And the thing was, she wasn't really, at that point, practicing prostitution during the war, the battle. But because of being from that city, mainly, she was considered ritually unclean. And they couldn't bring anybody unclean into the midst of the camp. Okay, so initially she had to be outside the camp to go through a ritual purification. And I don't know how many days it would be, something like that.
7 to 14.
Something like that, yeah. Anyway, she was considered, her and her family, and by the way, that answers another question, because you notice what it talked about, who it was they brought out. Yeah.
Her whole family.
Yeah, it talks about family, so that's what answers that first question too. After being spared, they were relocated to outside the camp of Israel. That's probably in the area of Gilgal, because that's where almost everybody was, except for the people who were at Jericho, right? They would have been considered ceremonially unclean, so they would not join the Israelites' assembly immediately. Joshua 6:25 indicates that once they had completed the necessary purity rituals, Rahab's family members were then received into the Israelite congregation. In other words, they were now part of Israel, grafted in, just like we are. We're part of the family of God. We are grafted into God's family, aren't we? Isn't that neat? It's a great, great picture of God's mercy. When we turn to Him and we trust in Him, that's what happens. Now, could anybody else have done that too? They could have. They chose not to. They chose not to. And so they could have said, when Israel was first coming towards them, they could have, as a group of people, and we don't know any other accounts other than this one here, they could have said, we want to follow God alone. We know we've been sinning, and we want to repent, and we want to be part of you. Do you think they would have been turned away by God? No.
I think Joshua and, those 2 young men, they were directed to that house because God knew who Rahab's heart.
Yep.
And
yeah, that's exactly right. You're exactly right. And the people in that household followed Rahab's lead in this area. Anyway, so I think I talked about it. So what victories does God promise His people today? This is a good, simple question. What do you think? What are some victories that God promises us today?
No matter what problems you're going through, I'm right there, and
He's with you.
I'm orchestrating what's going on ahead of you.
There's many, many promises in the Bible. That's one of the best ones. One particular I wrote down was John 16:33, and I'll read that one. It says, "And Jesus said, 'These things I have spoken to you, so that in me you may have peace. In the world you have tribulation, but take courage. I have overcome the world. So have faith in Christ. He's overtaken the whole world, right? I think that's great to do that as well. There's many other verses besides that one, but that was one I was thinking about. So the God who faithfully delivered Jericho to Israel and faithfully protected Rahab and her family is the same God we serve today, and that's exactly right. He still works to provide for his people and to protect them. We need to consider areas of our own lives where we need to see God move and determine how we can trust him in the way Israel and Rahab trusted him. If Rahab can be saved, anyone can be saved, right? You don't have to work your way to heaven. You just need to have faith in the one who owns heaven and owns the earth. So four. I got four points from our lesson today. The first one is we should obey God's directions, even when they don't make sense. Well, that's hard to do. That's, when your little child, jump and I'll catch you. That doesn't make sense, Daddy. Okay, fine. You jump, right? That was our example, right? Second one, we experience victory in life when we obey God completely, and that's true. It's an amazing axiom, but it's a truism. 3, we can trust God to do what only he can do. We can't understand how that can be done, but God does. God does. And the last one they bring up is that we can live in victory by trusting in God's promises. Do you think Rahab and her family lived in victory after this thing happened? I think so. Think about that. They lost their whole thing, and now they've gained God, and her eyes are that way. They're not back behind her like Lot's wife looked behind at Sodom and turned into a pillar of salt, right?
Yeah.
She's looking ahead, and that was a neat thing because she's part of the family lineage of King David and Christ. Wow. So I didn't get to the handout number 3, but it has winning strategy in it. You can figure it out later at home. It's some good things to help us with things in our life maybe that don't make sense at the time. How come, Lord? Why is this? It's some ways that we can pray. So you might look at that later on. It's simply a tool that can be used to be more specific in your prayers. I don't know about you, but I need to be more specific in my prayers. All of us do probably, right? And we think about maybe perhaps just one situation you can write down that you will be praying about in the first column of the handout. This challenge would be for you to continue praying through that issue during this next week and beyond, obviously, and to fill in the spaces as you do that. The challenge from our study today is to examine our own lives right now and see where we might be struggling. And we all do, don't we? Struggle to fully trust in God's promises and to follow through with obeying him fully. Any comments or questions? We're out of time, sadly. I'm amazed it didn't buzz me. Let's have a word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, I just thank you for this example of how you brought such a great victory to Israel. And for them to see this before their very eyes, Lord. And I know people are imperfect, and we're going to hear about imperfect ones next week too. But Lord, you're faithful, you are perfect, and we can trust in you. Just pray that you'd help us to rest assured in your victory in our life, to fully trust you, even when we can't see the end. We can't see how it's going to end, but we know that you have control of the end. Excuse me. Thank you, Lord, for how you give us victory after victory after victory in our lives. In your Son's name, amen. And I didn't get to do the song. Oh. You guys know the song Trust and Obey? It's on handout number 1 at the bottom, second page of handout number 1.
Trust and obey.
I'll do the first verse. We'll do the first verse. When we walk with the Lord in the light of his word, what a glory he sheds on our way. Let us do his good will. He abides with us still, and with all who will trust and obey. Trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in Jesus but to trust and obey. And there's 3 more verses. We're not going to do that because we're out of time. Thank you guys for bearing with me. I hope you enjoyed. This is one of the most fascinating stories in the Old Testament. To see how God did this and how they were faithful, and then they kind of blew it after that.
I get Let the Stones Talk is an Israeli all of the archaeological digs.
Yes, yes.
I have one on Jericho.
Oh, you do?
Oh, that's just fascinating, yeah.
What a precious thing to have.
Well, those walls.
Uh-huh.
were-
Big.
Now, the outer walls were really skinny. They were like 2 to 4 feet wide.
Mhm. But
And
the,
the inner
but the-
walls were like 14
yeah,
feet.
and they filled in the space with rubble and, you know, stuff.
Yeah.
And I think I read somewhere they theorized they were 25 feet tall, and some of the walls, I don't know if it was the first wall or this inner wall. The inner wall might have been the one that they were talking about. Were like very wide, very wide. They're very formidable things to breach, and yet they tumbled right down, causing a ramp to go right in. Praise God. Anyway, all right. we
You
keep
pretty
going.
girl.
Well, I'm doing great.
Uh-oh, something dropped?
Yeah, I have no idea where it went.
It's down there by your phone.
Probably, okay.
Did you take
Knees
oh, you took
are
care of that? Thank
especially-
you for doing that.
My knees are especially bothering me.
Sorry.
Yes, I think it must be the weather because
Might be,
the
yeah.
last 3 days it's just been difficult. But
If you're talking about arthritis,
Yes.
it's,
yes, I am.
Arthritis. I hate Arthur when it comes to that.
Yeah.
it needs to go away. Do you have extra
What?
handouts? Can
Sure.
I have a?
How many you want? 2?
Here.
3?
3?
Oh, I got 3 right here.
Here's mine.
I make
Oh,
that
well.
No, I've got 3 right here.
Does anyone want it?
I just need 3.
Okay.
Okay,
I just
Well,
need
that's
3
good.
for the people who are watching and
Oh,
doing.
yeah?
oh,
Thank you for being with us online. I forgot to say. My name's Norm Ellis. This is Grace Baptist Church, and God bless you guys online. And stand by. We're going to have a guest speaker today. Our regular pastor is doing his official Air Force duty up at McCord Air Force Base, so he can't be with us today. But a man named Turner, that's his first name, Turner Barnes, I think that's it. He'll be bringing the message, so I hope you can stand by it. And this same YouTube channel, look for a different link and click on, you can watch it. Bye-bye.
Must be heard.
this was a beautiful study, wasn't it?
I liked. Okay, let's see.
I did too. I thought it was great. Like I said, one of these Old Testament